more stories are live. I'm going to welcome Carlos, who is live with us. Hello, Carlos. How are you doing? Good evening. Where are you?
Hello, very good evening from Medellin, Colombia.
In Medellin, Colombia. Welcome, Carlos. Do you have a story for us related to the abduction phenomenon?
Yes, let's say it's more than that. I don't think it was an abduction, but something, let's say it was a connection. Let's put it that way.
Okay, well, I want to listen to you. I want to hear your story.
All right, Hector, let me tell you. I've been following the unidentified flying object phenomenon for many years. But in 2018, I had a connection, let's put it that way, a pretty strong one, because, well, in this development of unidentified flying object knowledge, following many people, watching shows, and absorbing information, I met a Spanish woman. She explains a lot of things about the phenomenon, like how to meditate, how to, let's say, connect. And I started following every step of what she offered, and I saw that it started giving results. In such a way that I started having many, let's say, encounters in my dreams, because they were very lucid dreams with people who spoke to me, who were beings of light. At first, I would mention everything or relate it that way with the angelic theme. They were angels, and I, with the angelic theme and all that, started to have that connection, believing they were angels. As I continued this process of development with this very important person in Spain, one night I come home from work, change clothes, and go to bed. Everything normal. That night was when I had that connection where I truly felt something very, very personal. Clearly, when I left my body, I left my body. That's why I realized it was an abduction. I wanted to prepare myself for it. But I never thought that kind of encounter would happen so quickly. And when I could already see, I could hear, I could see, I was already there. Exactly. I felt like I was just going to sleep. And when I came to, when I could see and feel clearly, I was already in what felt like a ship. Everything, the room, everything was white, completely white. I was standing and I was alone in that room. I was cold, very cold, and I started to wonder, where am I? Why am I here? Is this a dream? They responded immediately. A being appeared to me at that moment and answered me saying, I am going to change into my human form. They told me that then so I wouldn't be scared. And a person appeared to me. It was a strong person, very strong. He didn't have blonde hair, so I couldn't say he was a Nordic. He wasn't a Nordic. He had light brown hair and was very strong. He did have a suit, and since I had been following this person's whole unidentified flying object development, I had already heard about races, certain contacts, and seen several documentaries. I wasn't afraid since I wondered, am I dreaming? But this person tells me a name that I can't remember right now. It wasn't a human name like Luis or Jose. It was completely unfamiliar to me. And he tells me that we're going to have an experience. He says, Carlos, you have been looking for us, and in response, we are going to give you some knowledge. We are going to give you an experience. We are on a ship, we are going to another planet, and we are going to show you different things. When I'm on the ship, I say to myself, wow, I can't believe it. This can't be this ship. In that white room where I was, when I turn around, he says to me, look, you can see a kind of translucent screen, like a very big screen, but translucent. And I see that, I see it clearly. It's like seeing the earth from another point. I don't know how far away, but you can see the earth. And he says to me, that's the earth. We are leaving the earth. We are going to a nearby planet within the solar system that you already know. And I was stunned and I just said yes. I started to see how we were moving away and the earth looked farther and farther away. And then he says to me, come on, let's take a walk. Let's walk around here in the ship. And I started to walk with this being. When this being started to walk, the doors opened as if they weren't something physical. And when you're walking and about to reach the wall, let's say, or what should be there, the obstacle is no longer an obstacle, but rather it becomes a silhouette and I can pass through. I would move from one side to the other, always accompanied by this being. I began noticing different species because they were distinct. They all had a suit, that's for sure. They all had a suit, and the suit was tied to the body. It was like a dark blue, something like that, between violet and dark blue, something like that. Some of them looked at me, and obviously they weren't human. Others were humanoid, the ones that weren't human. They scared me, and he told me, "Don't worry, everyone here is peaceful." And when I was walking with him, passing through several sections, it was as if he, at all times while I was doing that development and those meditations and this whole process I had been doing before, it was as if they knew about it because he told me I was doing very well, that I already knew a lot of information, that I was indeed sorry, that I had awakened. That's what he told me. He said, "You have awakened." And that's what allows us to make this contact with you. We can't have contact if the person hasn't awakened. He explained that to me at that moment because actually, well, in those channelings that one tries to do, I tried many times. I didn't really know I had that connection. I was just relating it to something from the church. Because that's what I used to say. Angels are archangels, and they were nothing like these beings, and they were watching me during that time. I mean, like, I wanted to go to mass. You want to get answers, and we're going to give them to you by watching, but it's all because you've awakened. Shall we continue? I asked him who they were, what they were, and why there were so many different races there, what they were doing there, and he answered me and said that they were indeed on a mission. Do you know anything you've read or heard that we call the Federation? We are part of that federation, There are different races or species, and we help several planets among them. He told me not just to planet Earth, but to several planets. And they indeed continued that journey on the ship. Some of them, yes, I saw them wearing a belt. I didn't look at the belt in detail, but they did have a belt. And I remembered that many years ago, I used to see, I don't know if you remember a very famous series from many years ago called The Thundercats. Yes, of course. Yes, I do remember. They wore a big belt in the middle with the figure of a cat. They wore a belt like that, but obviously it wasn't a cat, it was something else. Perfect. Well, we're here. Indeed, the trip was quick because even though we were going to a very distant planet, we arrived at that planet, which was not Venus. I asked if it was Venus and he told me no. I asked which other one it could be, a nearby one, and he said no, but he didn't tell me the name. When we arrived, I wanted to get off the ship and he said, "One moment, you can't get off yet because you don't have the protection and you're not qualified for that environment." All right. And they actually put me in something like an astronaut suit. Yes, they put something on my head like a completely closed helmet so that he told me, "You can breathe, but the air outside is different from Earth's, so you can't breathe it the same way." And I said, "Okay, fine. What are we doing here?" And he said, "You'll see what it's like. It's a mission we have here on this small planet. And here we have something like a base." And we started to look around. And when I got out, I saw the ship. The ship was definitely round. It was round. I remember perfectly. Inside, it was super spacious, but from the outside, it looked smaller. Okay, I never got to see any pilots or controls because I didn't get to that part. The whole time the tour was through other parts of the ship. When I came down to this planet, I felt a heavy atmosphere. It was like a dense atmosphere. It wasn't like seeing a normal sky. It was completely violet or something like that. All right, all right. I never saw the sun at any moment, but it was bright, like a sunset. Let's put it that way. That was the atmosphere I saw, like between night and day. That's how it looked. They were there, and there were all these beings or species that were there. Each group seemed to be dedicated to something specific. They had technology, they had everything, buildings like warehouses. I mean, there was a lot.
On that planet you landed on, or the one they took you to, was there already a colony of beings established?
Yes, yes, they were working there. Like I said, it was like a base, and for them, it was a base. That's why I asked if it was Venus or what the place was where I was, but he didn't tell me. He didn't want to tell me. Well, and then as we were walking, he was giving me information. He was telling me, for example, the connections. What you're doing, the connections are totally real, but you have to be careful who you connect with because when you, sorry,
Sorry, did you mean connections with other human beings?
no, I meant not with beings like them, but with other human beings from this side.
Okay, perfect. Before you continue, I want to ask something I've been holding on to since the start because I think it's interesting for you to describe. What did the faces of these beings look like?
The one who was with me the whole time was humanoid. However, at the beginning, he told me he was going to change shape.
But did you get to see him before he took on a humanoid form?
No, that day when I arrived, like I was telling you, I was alone in that white space, in that room, completely alone. When he spoke to me and told me he was going to change his form so I wouldn't be scared. When he arrived, he was in a humanoid form. He wasn't in that other form. The others I saw later after he spoke to me and gave me reassurance and confidence. Let's put it this way. When we left the ship and he told me, let's walk and let's look around, that's when it happened. I saw different beings. I saw some that looked like reptilians, let's put it that way, with the shape of a lizard. I saw others that were humanoid, but their ears were different. They weren't like ours. There were several beings. I remember there were some that were orange humanoid, but orange in color. I mean, there were several. That's why he told me that they were part of the Federation and that within it there were many races. Like saying there are many races, not just the ones you know. Like that, because he, as I was telling you, it was as if they had already studied me, and that's why they told me that there are several races and that I had to keep searching for the truth. He did mention that to me while we kept walking. That I should always keep an open mind, always. That whatever I thought was the most, let's put it this way, the strangest thing.
Could be real. And something interesting you said before is that they present themselves to you, because you had already awakened in this connection with the transcendent within meditation and spirituality. Thanks to that, a door opens so that they can come to you completely.
Yes, indeed, they explained many things to me about the religious aspect. Because I told them that I thought they were angels, and they told me, yes, there are beings that you call angels, but there is much more beyond that. That's why always, I never forget, they left me with that warning. Friends, be very careful when you try to channel or make connections because there is all kinds of things out there. I mean, there's us. The spiritual plane exists. They explained it to me. However, for them, it's not the same as how we humans perceive it, and that I should learn or keep learning to tell the difference between when they were positive beings and when there were others that weren't so positive. Be careful with those who aren't positive as they may take advantage of it.
And I want you to continue the story because I interrupted you to ask about the face. But when they tell you to be careful with those who aren't positive, what can they do to you? What can those beings who aren't positive do to us humans?
Well, actually, at least this being and this group that took me, it's important to say that at all times I was with this person who spoke to me and accompanied me. The others didn't talk to me. They just looked at me in a friendly way. Everything felt normal. At no time did I feel fear or confusion. And he was saying something to me. You, as humans, have something that is your soul, your spirit, and that allows you to discern when your soul gives you a warning and tells you that something is not right. So, in what way? For example, when I was with this being, I didn't feel fear or anxiety, but he told me that when I see other kinds of presences or when I try to have those connections and I feel that something doesn't feel right, that at that moment I shouldn't maintain that connection. I mean, don't let them in because they told me we come in when the person wakes up and when they look for us or want to communicate. But if that doesn't happen, we can't intervene. But there are others who do come without you having to call them, so they take advantage. In many things, they told me that yes, they can cause harm, that they can abduct. I mean, abductions exist, they're real, all that stuff. Obviously, they can do tests and so on, and yes, they can really affect a person, even make them not come back. So,
Listen, and in your case, since you were taken by a positive or good race, so to speak. Well, first, chronologically, how did the event continue? You were there, you went down to that planet, you saw their base, and how did it continue?
okay, as we were walking on the planet at the main base where they were, the base was like covered by a big dome. That atmosphere wasn't natural. In other words, it wasn't a habitable planet.
It was an artificial atmosphere.
Yes, it was like an artificial atmosphere created with their technology. Why? Because that's why I'm telling you. They never told me the planet's name since back then it wasn't a planet to me. Anyway, where were we? I don't know, but we were inside the solar system hours. No, we weren't outside. We were inside because they, as a federation, something I remember from that moment is that they told me they have zones. Let's put it this way. They have boundaries. They can't just go wherever they want. They have limits, or at least the federation has a limit within the solar system. And they know there are other areas, but they still have limits. What about communication with all races? Not everyone is open to that. So that's why they're like the ones who already have, let's say, that closeness with us as humans. Anyway, we kept walking in the area, and I do clearly remember the dome. There were no clouds. Like I said, to me, the sky was that violet color, kind of between sunset, day, and night. At no point did I see any flashes or stars either. I saw buildings like warehouses. It was like an industrial area. Okay, there were different ships, and the ship I landed in with them was a round ship. You couldn't see any windows or lights. It was a dark silver color, completely uniform. There were other ships that, as we walked, did have different features for different missions. They said that they analyzed several planets in many ways, in many things.
Okay.
And they touched on many topics with me at that moment. For me, it was a long night, as if I had been there for quite a while. I don't know how many hours, I would say 8 or 9 hours. We talked about spiritual topics because I had doubts, a lot of doubts about what I was learning. I asked her what was true and what wasn't, how to trust, what else I could see. And they clarified a lot of spiritual things for me at that moment because they told me that the spiritual side is very important for us. And that is what makes the awakening clearer and allows me to rise. There were things I understood and others I didn't, things that were completely new to me, but it became like a task for me to keep exploring.
Okay.
They also made it very clear to me that many things were not as people said, and that I should never believe everything the government said. That they had been here for many years and that different races already coexist on Earth.
Sorry to interrupt. Did they confirm to you that they have been among us for many years?
Yes, that's right, because those who were with me at that moment could change their shape, and there were others like them. There are others on Earth who can also change their shape.
They take human form to blend in?
Indeed, yes, and obviously as well. For example, I remember clearly because I asked him, hey, what happened to Billy Mayer? What happened with Billy Mayer? Was that real? They told me, yes, of course, that they are also part of the same federation and that they visit as well. and that the same thing that's happening with me is happening with them and with us. Always, before having contact, there has to be an observation of the person. If they are ready, if they are not, and what the purpose is for wanting that contact. Okay, and all that kind of stuff. So at least they confirmed that for me. I had a lot of questions. Obviously, I wanted to ask a lot of things, but it was impossible because he kept telling me other things. And for me, obviously, everything was amazing, absolutely everything. I mean, he told me that there are many more planets within the solar system than, for example, there was a topic where I told him, based on my connections, to be very careful with the Greys because they live on Earth. They take advantage when someone wants to do a channeling or a connection and they interrupt that request. Let's say they sneak in and show up. So how do they do it? I don't know, but they told me be very careful, be very careful.
And did they speak with a voice telepathically, or could they manifest by speaking?
He could speak with his mouth and also telepathically. How? The good part?
This testimony of yours is different. That's why I asked you again, because there are few who have experienced an abduction where these beings speak like that. Usually it's always telepathic.
He told me that from the moment he appeared and approached me there when I was on the ship, that at all times the first contact is very intense because you always get really shocked. There are people who don't react, who are practically taken and returned immediately. And it's as if nothing happened because there are people, I repeat, for them it's important that we are awake so we can be open to all possibilities. Without knowing it, like I told you, I was getting ready without knowing that it had a date because I didn't know. I want to make it clear that I never said it would happen on a specific date, day, or time. No, I didn't ask for it.
And now I want to ask you, after everything you've told us, after these beings confirm to you that they're among us, how do they bring you back to Earth? Do you remember how the experience ended, how it all ended?
That was what most, let's say, when I come back, that was what really helped me to confirm that it was real, that it wasn't a dream, that it wasn't something made up. It wasn't simply that I fell asleep from being tired and dreamed. When I came back, it turned out that my partner was next to me, and well, later she told me. I was in my body, face down, just like normal, lying down the way I always sleep. When I come back, what I feel is that I suddenly return to my body.
Did you fall or are you falling?
Exactly. I fall into my body, and that's when I had a physical sensation when I fell. The force with which I entered that fall was so strong that since I sleep close to the wall, I automatically jumped, hit the wall, and scraped my feet. I stood up because I felt the impact and said, "What happened? What happened?" And that's when I realized that about 45 minutes had passed since I had gone to bed. I mean, I was going to bed and this whole experience happened.
Of course, we don't know if the passage of time on Earth is the same as the passage of time outside of Earth.
No, I heard about that.
Clearly, it's not the same.
During the trip, they told me that I could stay there for a long time. That doesn't mean time stops. It doesn't. But we are on different planes. I don't know if they're dimensions. I don't know how they handle it. But time does pass there. And that's why I tell you, I felt like I was there for 8 or 9 hours, but only 45 minutes had passed when I returned. Around that.
Someone from the audience was asking, and I also want to invite people who are following this material on Trasnoche Paranormal, the YouTube channel, to write in the video comments and also by email. We are going to read absolutely everything that comes in. And how did your life change after this experience? Did anything happen in your physical life, or was there any significant change, Carlos?
Oh, a lot. After that experience, my life was never the same again. Honestly, that awakening I had, let's put it that way, confirmed so many things with that contact. Then I had other contacts. They are always there. When you want to meditate or channel, they are there to help, to support. My life, especially spiritually, changed completely. A lot of things changed for me because I had so many questions, and many of those were answered for me. I think there's a very important one when you ask about Jesus, whether he was real or not, what happened, if that's real, what to believe in, because that awakening isn't easy when you reach that breaking point. I was totally confused. I said, my God, what do I believe in? Which church? Who do I follow? Nowadays, I don't belong to any church. I consider myself spiritual. I believe in God, obviously, because that exists. It exists as an energy, whatever you want to call it. But now I see life in a very, very different way. Human history is very complex and very different from what we've been told. That's why awakening for some people is a strong shock and some people can have emotional consequences. But yes, it changed a lot. After that, I felt a calling to go to another country, and I, in my channelings, always asked, where will you take me or what do you want me to do? And really, when that happens, it's because everything is put in your path so things can happen. Not because they force you, because at no point do they force anyone.
And which country did you have to go to?
To Peru,
To look for what?
portals. They told me they were going to show me something. I went to Cusco, but that's another story. So here in Colombia, in Medellin, when all that was over and I finished that channeling, months went by in which I kept dreaming, and they kept showing me many things in those dreams. And that's when they clearly told me that I had to go to another country. The channelings were very clear and they told me, go to Peru. And I thought, but I work here. I don't know anyone there. Don't worry, we will always be there as guides. And the truth is that everything just happened on its own. I never planned anything. At one point, some friends from Medellin told me, let's go to Peru. I want to visit. And I thought, it can't be another country. It has to be Peru. And well, we went to Peru. We arrived in Lima, and I was saying, well, is it Lima? And no, it wasn't Lima. I would ask, and I felt inside that they were telling me, no, not here, keep going. I wondered, where now? What am I seeking? What should I do? I would just look at my phone, sit down for a while, try to calm myself, to be in harmony, at peace. There I felt something urging me to look, so I did. The city was Arequipa, Peru, which is the second largest city in the country. I lived there for 2 years. And it turns out that where I lived was very close to the Misty volcano, which is the largest volcano in the city of Arequipa. That was a portal. At that time, I didn't know much about the subject, although I did know a little from the channelings I had. When you're not in your body, you perceive many things that you don't see when you're physically present. I had already experienced that, but the subject of portals was something completely different. And Peru is a very, very powerful, energetic place. What's there? I don't know. What's special about Peru? I don't know.
I want to jump in. I was in Cusco too and went to Machu Picchu since I felt called to be there. My question is the same one the audience is asking themselves. These beings that in some way sent you to that portal through signs, are they the same ones who helped in the construction of those buildings? For example, Machu Picchu, the Incas, or the same thing that could have happened in Mexico with the ancient Aztecs and Mayans? I mean, is there something of these beings there? Or in Egypt, haven't these beings been on Earth for a long time assisting humans?
Yes, was it them directly? No. They told me that there were other advanced civilizations, but they weren't extraterrestrials. As I took these steps, when they guided me, they would give me information. I mean, if I went to Peru, I went to Peru and they gave me information in Peru. That's when they also tell me, they revealed to me the whole topic of the intraterrestrial civilizations, and it turns out that in Peru there are entrances to intraterrestrial civilizations, which for me was totally unknown. I had no knowledge of that.
The same thing that happens here in Argentina. In the underground city of Erx, in Capilla del Monte, Cordoba province. I'm sure you've heard of it.
Yes, that too. Apparently, everything is interconnected, of course. That's why everything is connected. Under Chile, Argentina, Uruguay, Ecuador, Peru, and Colombia. Well, but at that time, all of that was new to me. Obviously, you can't just go in like that. It's not something you can just go and look for. You can't, you need a lot of permits. That's sensitive. It's a very, very sensitive topic. The governments do know about it. The governments know where the portals are, where the underground entrances are, and what beings live there. They know everything, absolutely everything. They used to tell me, your governments worldwide know all of this, they know us. But they don't agree that this should be made public, and we can't intervene in that matter. So, as I told you, they kept giving me more and more information that kept feeding all of that. I had a base, but it was very small, just a fragment. Seeing everything they revealed felt like discovering a whole new world of information. So in Peru, I was near the volcano. They told me that this volcano, since it's still active, El Misti is a portal. They told me the same thing happens in Mexico with Popocatépetl.
Popocatépetl, yes.
Exactly, in Ecuador too. And they told me that each volcano is an energy point for them. And how do they use it? They told me that they extract magnetic energy from those points because they are places on Earth where a lot of energy is released. They use it for many things, not just for the ships. Also for the activation of portals, and that there are terrestrial portals like the ones in Machu Picchu. So of course, they invited me, they called me again and again. Hector, it's time, appointment after appointment. Obviously, I went there to work. Everything worked out for me. I got a really good job. Like I said, they don't move you blindly. It's not about going to see what happens. They have everything prepared. I did really well. I had a good job, a good position. I had my own vehicle. Within 2 months of arriving in Peru, I already had a car and a good job. I'm a professional, but it's not always easy when you go to another country. And as I moved forward, they kept giving me messages. Well, now you have a way to go. Let's go. And I went. That obviously encouraged me even more. I lived very close to the volcano, and that gave me a really strong energy. It filled me with so much energy. It was like I was hyperactive, as if I had drunk liters and liters of coffee. And just by looking at the volcano from my bedroom window, just that. Once I was there, one of the appointments was for me to go to the Colca Canyon because they wanted to show me something important. I wondered, what's the Colca Canyon? Where is it? Look for it and you'll find it. I searched on digital maps and I found it. Obviously, it's very famous. There are many volcanoes, and I thought, what am I going to do there? Around there, I went in my car. It's not a vehicle suitable for climbing volcanoes, but I got as far as I could. Along those open dirt roads, rustic paths. If you've been around there, you know what they're like. I arrived, and the place, which is supposed to be a tourist spot, there wasn't a soul, there was no one. I was completely alone. When I'm there, I get out of the car, and as soon as I get out, I immediately felt the presence of several entities watching me, and I was alone. I have photos of the place. I took pictures of everything, where I went and what they showed me, and the message was about caring for the environment and the earth. How the first civilizations started, who inhabited them. Why did they leave? Because they didn't go extinct, they were taken away.
I'm interested in asking you that. Why did they leave? What did they tell you?
That they were taken away? Those civilizations exist today, but they're not on Earth. They're in other worlds. They're very advanced civilizations. At the time, they had external support, of course. Many were hybrids, they mixed. The humanoids mixed, and according to them, they left. Because when the whole process of colonization began, when humans arrived in America and the wars started, they had very advanced technologies that at that time could cause a lot of harm to humanity if they were discovered. So they said they're coming, we already know when they'll arrive, and they simply left.
There's a question I want to share with the people listening to us live. Carlos's story is fascinating. That's why we don't interrupt him. And I'm excited about the people who are following this on YouTube. You can leave your comments. There's a question that comes up a lot, and I have to ask you, did you check if they left you any implant or any physical or energetic device to influence or manipulate you? Oh, Carlos.
No, definitely not. They, at all times, something very important is respect, permission. Nothing was forced. At no point did they make me do anything. It was never a mandatory meeting. There were meetings I couldn't attend because of work or other things. And it was fine. I never felt anything negative or any reproach. Never, never. About my health. They warned me there that I needed to take care of myself. Then I went to the doctor and had a checkup. There was a health issue that I didn't know about and that I needed to take care of. So in that sense, yes, they did take care of me. For them, care is comprehensive. And the main message that I never forget is don't be afraid to share what you're going through with us.
That's the goal. And with that, we begin to wrap up our conversation tonight. Thank you for being with us live all this time. It was very easy to connect for this interview. I want to tell people that we didn't plan this ahead of time. You sent a message and we immediately went live. This conversation flowed smoothly for several minutes. I have no doubt that this is your mission to tell all of this to others.
Yes, that's right, it is. I've always done it ever since it happened at my job and everywhere I've been. Something very important is that in Peru, talking about these topics is normal. For them, it's something every day, at least when I went to the Colca Canyon. And I hope that many people who are watching me get the chance to go to these special places which exist in different parts of the world. Peru is one of them. And in Argentina, there's also a very, very powerful place, a place I've always wanted to visit at some point. Unisorco. Yes, you can see them. There are places that are definitely key in the world where they have more ease to manifest for multiple reasons.
There's something simple that human beings stopped seeing because the human mind is more focused on destroying and dividing. It invented countries, it invented boundaries, it invented borders, but in reality the planet is just one, and these doors don't have nationalities. All of that is made up.
They don't have owners.
They don't have owners. Exactly. All of that is humans setting boundaries to try to understand the chaos, but these beings are all over the planet. Now, the last question I want to ask you, without wanting to be alarmist or sensationalist, I don't think the question is out of place. At any point since you went through this experience, did you feel like someone wanted to silence your voice? Did you feel like you were being watched? Did you go through any traumatic experience?
Honestly, no, I never felt that way. Like I said, in Peru, when I talked about these topics with people, I traveled and people would tell me, hey, this place really has a beautiful energy. I'd also ask if they'd heard about portals. And for them, it was something normal. They would tell me about their ancestors and share stories from their towns. Because as a result of that, I traveled a lot around Peru, and it's amazing how people from those towns tell you that they've seen ships, they've seen beings, that they've talked to them, and the care they have for the earth is wonderful. That respect for the earth, for the volcanoes, for the energy. All of that makes it something natural for them. Unlike Medellin, because when I return to Medellin, it's different here. It's harder in the city. However, there have been many important spots seen in Medellin. I live near one of them. There are many videos about this on the internet. In Sabanita, I live very close by, and you can see how the crafts pass by as if it were an airport. It's something impressive. Something's happening there too. I always say that they're close by where there are several like me because I'm not the only one. And the idea is to make these topics known, for people to wake up, for us to be a group so we can work together to raise this global energy that every human being has. And that's what they're looking for us to keep transcending. I think that's the most important thing about all of this. And another important thing is that we can all connect. We can all do it in some way. It doesn't matter what religion you are. It doesn't matter what color your skin is. We all have something special. And if you want to connect with them, it can be done. You can do it without anyone telling you about it. You can do it yourself. Get ready. I looked for a person on my own. Her name is Solainza. She's Spanish.
Yes.
She explains a method, one of many that exist, and I followed it. And when I realized it, I was already channeling many things. It has helped me a lot in my life.
Before closing the interview, I want to make a clarification for the audience listening to us live. Tonight, November 11th, is a special day, 11/11, but many people will watch this video later on Trasnosh Paranormal on YouTube. That's why I need to clarify the context. Reviewed info on Trace and Atlas. Apparently, expectations are now low. The technological hypothesis was ruled out, according to what was published by the National Aeronautics and Space Administration. Carlos, I'll share a fact, then ask a question. Detection was possible on October 24, 5 days before Tres-Y Atlas reached its closest point to the sun. Attempts were made to detect radio signals before, without success. 5 weeks ago, the observatories detected this object approaching Earth. And what was confirmed in the last few hours, as of November 11th, this information may become outdated for those who watch the video later. It's that it wouldn't be extraterrestrial technology, but rather molecules similar to those of any comet. Therefore, this object approaching Earth would be a comet. I want to ask you if they revealed anything to you about Tress and Atlas, or if you have another hypothesis.
Not at that time, and not now either. I remember something they told me. Don't believe everything governments say. Outside, you can see a lot of things with the naked eye. You don't have to wait for the National Aeronautics and Space Administration to say something. You have to go further. With the issue of Tres and Atlas, of course, it made me a little uneasy because there's always a possibility. There are positive energies and others that aren't so much. That duality exists throughout the universe. It was worrying not to have much information, but I feel like something is happening. Many things have always been hidden from us. But I don't just go with what the National Aeronautics and Space Administration says. The truth is, I don't follow them. If they say something is yellow, I question it.
Of course. I want to thank you, Carlos, for these minutes. I send you a big hug from Argentina, and I'm sure we'll stay in touch.
Of course, thank you.
A lot.
Thank you for this space. Have a good night.
Do you have any email or social media you'd like to share on air?
Yes, anyone from Medellin or Colombia who needs help with these topics can contact me. If you've had channelings and don't know how to interpret them, I'd be happy to help you. With great pleasure. My email is Carlos Ugasi, that's UGASE at Google's email. You can write to me there and we can get in touch.
People are thanking you. Ana says thank you, Carlos. Others are greeting you and highlighting your story. All of Argentina is with us on Paranormal Late Night. Carlos, big hug.
Thank you.
Until next time. I want to add information related to what we were talking about with Carlos regarding the unidentified flying object phenomenon. Carlos mentioned two very interesting topics. The first, Billy Mayer, a very well-known and controversial figure in ufology. I didn't interrupt him because his story was interesting. We talked about Edward Albert Mayer, born in Switzerland in 1937. His fame comes from claiming that he was contacted by extraterrestrial beings. The core of his story begins in 1975. He claimed to have regular physical and telepathic contact with a race of humanoid beings. He called them the Plejaren, popularly known as the Pleiadians, who came from the Pleiades star system. His main contact was a woman named Semjase. The purpose? According to Meyer, to warn humanity about its path of self-destruction and to offer a new spiritual philosophy. He founded an organization called the Free Community of Interests for Borderline Spiritual Sciences and Ufological Studies. The case gained worldwide notoriety because of the large amount of physical evidence he presented. Color photographs of alleged spacecraft, films, and materials that he claimed were of extraterrestrial origin. Also, audio recordings of the supposed sound of the spacecraft. But there is a great controversy. Most researchers consider the case of Billy Mayer to be one of the biggest frauds. It was discovered that some photos were images of singers taken from television programs. His ex-wife publicly stated that the unidentified flying object photos were fake. She claimed that she helped create scale models using household objects. She also claimed to have traveled through time, but the dinosaur photos turned out to be images from illustrated books. Despite the evidence of fraud, Meyer and his organization are still active, huh? And on the other hand, Carlos talked about Solensa, who is a well-known Spanish researcher, trainer, and promoter of esoteric topics. Her approach is not so much paranormal, but rather metaphysical. She talks about Akashic records, metaphysics, and healing, but above all about beings of light and guides. She channels messages and talks about communication with spiritual guides, with angels, and with ascended masters who are none other than these beings. And what do you think? Feelings, opinions? I get your messages on our instant messaging service. And obviously, to those who are watching this on my YouTube channel, people from outside Argentina can support the channel through this quick response code. Friends who are watching this from other countries, you can scan it. That way you can help us and contribute to the channel. So that we can continue producing these investigations and interviews. You can also join by subscribing to the YouTube channel. That's for everyone. I invite you to join Trasnoche Paranormal. You can join the channel and support us with a monthly membership. Thank you very much from the bottom of my heart for helping us continue to grow with this channel dedicated to research and interviews about paranormal and unidentified flying object phenomena in Spanish. Thank you very much to all of you. The channel is nominated for the Martin Fierro Latino Awards in Miami. In 10 days, I'll be there. I hope we win that award. We are very happy to investigate the paranormal and unidentified flying object phenomenon from Argentina for the whole continent. From this YouTube channel, Trasnoche Paranormal, there are more stories. Thanks, everyone. I loved the interview.